handling web table. Before going to discuss what is a table, or I can say web table, let us see what is a table. So what is a table? A table in a database or in an Excel will have rows and columns. And in rows and columns, we will keep our data. This is what a table does. So in another way, what I can say, table is used for organizing data in rows and columns. It is the another definition for table. In the similar way, we are discussing about web table. So a web table is also a table used to organize data on the web page. It is used for organizing the data in the tabular format. So tabular format means in form of rows and columns. So this table is kept on a web page. It is nothing but a web table. I can also call this as HTML table. A web table can also be called as HTML table. I'm showing you this particular demo website. In this particular demo website, you can see the web table. So web table, as discussed, is also a table used to keep our data in rows and columns. So it is also called as HTML table. In the HTML, we will specify the schema of the table. What is the schema? Every table will have a body. In the body, you are having rows and as well as cells. Each row is having some cell. We will see in a while. We will inspect this particular table and we will see all the operations what we can perform in the table. Then, what are different type of operations we can perform on the table? Yes, there is a table. As per my requirement, I have to count number of rows present in this particular table, number of columns, reading specific data from row as well as from column, and reading all data. These are the operations which we can do on this table. The same way which or how we are interacting this web table in this particular web page, in the same way you can interact. If there is a web table or a HTML table in any web page, you can use the same way, or you can perform the actions in the similar way that we are going to discuss right now. Right, what are the operations? Counting number of rows, how many rows are present, number of columns, and reading data from specific row and column. So these are the basic operations which we will perform on a table using automation script. Very important web element is web table. Then, yes, there is a table. If you see here, the content or the data in the table is static. Means the data here is not dynamically changing. There are web tables where the data can be dynamically changing. Yes, there are two types of tables we can see. One is the data is static always, and if you go to some another website, there may be a chance that data can be dynamic. So there are two types of tables: static web table as well as dynamic web table. Data is static. Every time when we open the table, we see the same type of data. Then coming to dynamic web table, data is always not the same. Data keeps updating or changing. It is nothing but a dynamic web table. Data is static every time when we open the table. Data is dynamically changing, nothing but updating or changing. Two types of tables, static as well as dynamic table. This is what we need to know up to now. A basic info about the HTML table or web table. Then if you inspect this particular table, you can see how that particular table is designed. Always for a table, if you can see here, let me inspect this. Always for a table, you will have table as a tag name. That's what you are seeing here. Very important. And inside the table, you are having body. T body, the tag name is. So inside the body only, you are having rows as well as each row is having a cell. In the T body, you are having rows, and in the rows, you are having cell. Let me expand this T body. In the T body, you are having rows. First row, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row, sixth row, seventh row. So total 7 rows. And another important point, always first row is header row. Always first row is header row. Very important. So from the second row onwards, my data or the data which I keep in rows and columns will be kept. Or I can say header row or columns. Each row is having, or the first row is having a column name. You need to understand very carefully. Every web table is having a tag name of table, and inside the table you are having T body. Inside the T body only you are having rows. And if you expand row, you can see cells. Each row is having cell. Each cell is having some value. That value is specified between TH tag. TH means table header. Table header. Table header is nothing but a column name. Here book name is the column name, author is the column name, subject is the column name, price is the column name. And if you expand another T row, you can see TD. TH is different, TD is different. Table data, which is nothing but the data in a cell. As I said before, the first row is having column names. So that is the reason why they have specified in between TH, HD, TH, table header. Table header is always a column name. With the help of column name, you will fetch the values or the data in the cells. And TD, table data. In a cell, you will having the data, and the data is specified between TD tags. Very important. Starting from the second row onwards, you'll have the table data specified in rows and columns. Very important. If you see the schema, it is very important to understand it one more time. What is the schema you are having? This is the schema. See, always a table in a web page or a HTML table is having table as a tag name. And inside the table, you are having T body, as we seen here, T body. And inside the T body, you are having header, this particular table. So inside T body only, in one row, they have specified column names. But there may be some tables where they can define headers, TH, before body only. That is as per the designment. But the schema, whole schema is same. every table is having rows and every row is having, whether it is according to the website requirement, having in that body only you are having headers, or headers are described before the body only. In the body we are having rows and in the rows we are having cells. Each cell is having a data which is specified between TD. Very important. TH table header or T head. TD table data. Very important. Then how you can interact with a table. Up to now we have seen an XPath, but here definitely that static XPath will not be useful, because if I want to read the data, then I have to iterate through each and every row. Row 1, next iteration row 2, next iteration row 3, likewise all the rows. So at the time of iterating, the XPath which we are going to write should also iterate. This you will understand in a while. Don't worry. When we are writing an XPath, you will get to know. But to make you understand, let me note some points here. Very important. Please listen it carefully. We have to write customized XPaths to work with data on table, whether it is a static table or whether it is a dynamic table. We have to write customized XPaths, nothing but a dynamic XPath, because every time when you iterate, the row number is not same. Right now you are here, this is row number 2, and you have read the data and you have printed it in the console, and in the next iteration you have to jump to third row. Again you have to read the data and your requirement is to print it in the console. Yes, you have done that. Next you have to iterate into the fourth row. Likewise, the XPath or whatever the locator is changing, it is based on the row number. How you can handle this? By using dynamic XPath. What is dynamic XPath? Inside XPath we can pass parameters. Up to now you have seen it like this. When I say an XPath, what you can do or what you will write, you can specify / and you can specify star or the tag name, and between square brackets you will specify attribute and you will specify the value in the single quote or double quote. That will be fine. So this is the static XPath. Once you write this XPath, you will not going to change this during runtime, but this static XPath will not be useful for handling table. So definitely you need to use dynamic XPath. Very important interview question, very important topic. Again, one more time, listen it carefully. How you write dynamic XPath? First, the variable which is changing, like here if you can see, the row is changing. This is the second row, third row. Every time when we iterate, row value is changing. So here I can take row as a variable. I can initialize as R, and I need to convert it into string, and after converting it into string, you can see it here. You need to specify that converted string in double quotes. That's what we have written here in the double quotes. And inside the double quotes and before and after string conversion or converted string, you need to add plus. This is a dynamic XPath. Very important. You need to convert the variable which is changing all the time into string, and you need to specify that string in the double quotes, and inside double quotes before and after converted string you need to add plus. This is the syntax for writing dynamic XPath. Very important point here. Again, I am repeating. If you can see, this particular web table, or in this particular web table, every time I need to iterate through rows. So row value is changing. So the value which is changing, you can assign it to a variable and you can convert it into a string. And after converting, you can keep that in double quotation. And inside double quotes, you can add plus before and after the string. This is what you need to write dynamic XPath. By this, you will not understand anything. Let us try to write one Python or automation script that how we can handle a web table so that you can understand. Go to PyCharm, create a directory of day 28. In the directory, create a module of web table. Very important interview question. How to write a dynamic XPath. For every automation script, the basic points are: we need to import a WebDriver from Selenium package. We need to import by desired capabilities, initialize the driver variable, open that particular URL by using driver.get, maximize window, and you can use implicit wait. Whenever there is an exception or there is a synchronization problem, implicit wait will take care of. So it is better practice to use implicit wait. Instead of implicit wait, you can use time, but I see the performance of the script will be poor. And first operation on the web table, what we can perform is counting number of rows and counting number of columns. Very important. Number of rows, not a row, columns, not a column. So multiple elements, multiple columns, multiple rows. I need to use find elements method, not find element. When I use find elements method, it will return me an list object. If there are elements in the list, then I can apply length function to get count of elements or objects present in that particular list. Go here, driver dot find underscore elements, not element, by dot XPath. And in the XPath, you need to specify the locator of rows. So in the table, I am having rows. So what I can do, I can find this table, and inside the table, I am having rows. I can specify tr here. Let me go and write an XPath. You can see here, and the table is always having a table tag. And what is its name? Its name is, if you can see here, again I am trying to inspect this book table. This is the name of that particular table. And this is the locator of this particular web table. And inside the table, I'm having t-body, and inside the t-body, I'm having rows. So I can use inside inside table, I am having t-body, yes, and inside t-body, I am having tr. tr is nothing but table rows. td is nothing but table data. Table data is specified in a cell of a row. th is nothing but header. In this table, in the first row only, you are having headers. Even though you are having header, this is considered as a row. So with the help of this, I can find how many rows in this particular table. If you can see here, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, total 7 rows, including header row. So that is the reason why it has got 7 rows. Very important. And instead of this, what you can do directly, instead of this, you can specify double slash here. If you specify double slash also, it will try to return multiple rows. This is what you need to do. This is the row locator. I will specify that locator here, and it will return multiple web elements in the form of list. So nothing but I can say it is as, since I am just taking this locator for counting the rows, what I can do, I can assign it to number of rows. You can assign it to this particular variable. Yes. And it will return multiple web elements in the form of list. I want to count how many rows are there. So I can apply length function for this list. When I use length function, definitely it will count number of elements present in this particular list. Similarly, I want number of columns. Right now, I have found it for rows. I need to found number of columns. So this is column 1. You can count it in vertical. Column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4. So what I can do in a short way, I can take one row, whether it is a header row or a data row. I can take one row. I can count number of cells in that particular row. Number of cells is equal to number of columns. I can take any one row. In the row, how many cells I am having? Each cell, I can take it as a column. I can take it as a first row or second row, whatever one you can take. So when I specify tr of 1, I can specify the index here, means it will consider the first row. In the first row, I am having cells. If you can see here, I am taking header row. Header row is having th, or if you can take td in the second row, you can specify td here. td or th, nothing but those are all cells. Each row is having cell, whether it is a header or a data, it is nothing but a cell. So in the first row, I'm just specifying th. When I specify th, it will try to count me number of cells. Number of cells is equal to number of columns in the vertical direction. Or I'm taking this in the first row, but when I take this in the second row, from the second row onwards, I'm just having the data. So what I can do, tr of 2, and instead of th, I can specify it as td. In that case also, it will try to count me number of columns. Let me take this, go here, and driver dot find elements by dot xpath. You need to specify that xpath here, and you can take this as number of columns. I can assign it to a columns variable, and since it is also returning a list object, I can apply length function, length of the particular list. And after getting that, I can print of number of columns. I can specify first number of rows, and similarly print of number of columns. So let me execute up to here. So we'll get count of rows and count of columns. Very important. Maximize that browser window after opening that URL, and you can see it in the console. We have total 7 rows and 4 columns. So this is counting first operation, counting number of rows and columns. Very important. How you can count? Just by specifying the xpath. That's what you need to do simply. And instead of find element, you need to use find elements. And anyway, find elements method will return a list object. You can apply length function on that list to count number of elements or objects present in that particular list. Simply. Very important. Another operation. How you can read specific row and column data. If you can go here into this particular website. So suppose if I want to read this specific cell data, or In this particular row, in the second column, I'm just having, or I want to read this particular data. What I can do, I can specify the row value or the row number along with the column value. How I can write? So suppose you can take this. Let me close this, and if you can see, this is the second row. In the second row, I want to read some third column data. Second row, third column. Similarly, whatever the data which I want to read, I can specify the row number and the column number. If you can see here, in the second row, I want to read third data. I mean third column data. So this is the second row, and just I'm specifying TD of 3. When I specify that, I can read that particular cell data. That's what you are seeing here. Suppose I don't want to read second row data. If I want to read last row data, what I can do, I can specify the row number as 7, because I have total 7 rows. The last row is tr of 7, and inside tr of 7, I want to read the first column data. So what I can do, I can specify td of 1. When I specify td of 1, it will try to read a specific data. So how you can read specific data? Just you need to mention row number as well as column number. That's what you need to do. Nothing you need to do. Driver dot find element, not find elements, because you are just reading a single value, not multiple values. By dot xpath, and you can specify that xpath here, and for every cell is having inner text. Data is specified as inner text. If you observe here, you can fetch that inner text value dot text, and you can assign it to a variable like suppose data is equal to the locator along with inner text, and you can print that data. Just how you can read the specific row and column data, just you need to specify row number as well as column number. That's it. That's what you need to do. Let me comment this counting number of rows, and let me execute read specific row and column data. Run web table. Yes, it has maximized this browser window, and it has printed the particular row and cell data. Master in JS. So in the 7th row, in the first column, I am having master in JS is the data. If you can see here, yes, master in JS is the data in 7th row, first column. Suppose I don't want to read 7th row data. Suppose if I want to read 3rd row and some second cell data, what I can do, I can let me execute this. If you can see here, upon maximizing, I will get Mukesh is the 3rd row, second column data. Go here, and you can see here 3rd row. Yes, this is the 3rd row, first row. This is second row. This is 3rd row. In the 3rd row, second column data is Mukesh. That's what it has printed in the console. In this way, you can read specific column data, count number of rows and columns. Another important operation. Up to now, you have seen reading the specific row or column data. But right now, my requirement is I want to read all rows and columns data. Very important operation on the table. So for reading all rows and columns data, definitely you need a row count, how many rows you have as well as how many columns you have. So go here and let you enable this. We will use this particular count data in iterating. So what you can do, you can use for loop. For iterating the rows, what I can do, I can specify row value. So that row value, I can assign it to some variable that is nothing but r. I'm just taking r here. For r in range of range of, if you observe here, first row is header row, and from the second row onwards, I am having the data in the rows as well as in the cells. So what I can do, I can specify I should start from second row. In the range of, I can specify 2 comma, how many rows are present in this? From 2 onwards, how many rows are present? I need to iterate each and every row. So in the range function, I can specify number of rows, and I need to add 1 here. If I add 1 here, it will at last consider number of rows. If I only specify number of rows, it will try to consider number of rows minus 1. That's what we have discussed when discussing with range function. This is iterating the rows, and at the time of iterating the rows, you need to iterate the cell value or the column. In the second row, you need to iterate first column, second column, third column, as well as fourth column, or and so on. How many columns you have. So for this, what I can do, I can specify the column number. For C in range of, as like the range logic, range of, you can specify the first column starts from 1 only, and it iterates from 1 to number of columns. So what I can specify here, 1 comma number of columns. It is very confusing, but it is very easy upon practicing. You are just iterating how many rows are present. You are just iterating that many rows, iterating, and how many cells are present. You are just iterating that many cells to read all rows and columns data. Very important. Then you can use the same locator. You can use the same locator what you have used when reading specific row and column data. Then you need to observe one thing carefully. That locator which we have used for reading specific row and data is static locator, because I have statically specified the row value as well as column value. But right now, my row number is changing every time, and my column number is changing every time. Yes, if the values are changing, definitely you need to use dynamic XPath. Very important. How you can use dynamic XPath here? As we have discussed, convert that variable into string and keep that string in double quotes, add plus and after before that string. So simple. Instead of the row number which you specified, what you can do, you can convert that row value into a string, because t are nothing but a row value, and you can keep that in double quotes, and you can specify plus before and after the string. That's what you need to do. That's it. Instead of 3, what we have done here, I have specified the dynamic XPath. The dynamic XPath is nothing but, and you have just specified the row value because it is changing dynamically every time. In the similar way, I can also specify the column value. Instead of 2, what I can do, I can use the same thing, and instead of R, I can specify C. You have specified the row number and you have specified the column number. But if the rows and columns are dynamically changing, static values will only read that particular cell data. But I want to read all rows and columns data. So for that, definitely I need to use dynamic XPath. This is what you need to do. Instead of static value, just you will specify the dynamic value. So this is an XPath. But up to now, we have seen we will only specify the value one time. And during running also, at the time of running of this particular script, these values are not changing. But during running, rows and columns needs to change, because I want to read all rows and columns data. What you will do, you will just specify the dynamic XPath here. The syntax is this. Again, I am repeating. Keep variable in string, convert that variable to string, keep this in double quotes, add plus before and after the string. That's it. That's what you need to do. Simple. And you can print the data. Let me execute this. You can see it here. After maximizing the browser window, it has printed all rows. In each row, you are having a specific cell. Nothing but this is. specific cell, or I can call specific column. It has printed one by one, but I don't want to print in this way. I want to print row by row. For this, what I can do, I can use print of end is equal to, I can specify space here. I need to use end, and I need to specify space between quotes. And at last, what I can do, I can use print function. When I use like this, when I use in this way, it will try to print each row value row by row. Let me execute this one more time. Instead of printing one by one, I want the data to be printed row by row wise. If you can see here, it has printed row wise. Learn selenium, Amit selenium. So this is what the data in this particular table. Very important. Then in this way, you can read all rows and columns data. If you observe here, it has not printed the last column data. Why? The mistake here is in specifying the number of columns, I need to add one because it is a range function. So the always it will consider end minus one. So I don't want columns to be less. I don't want all the columns. So that is the reason number of columns plus one I have specified here. Let me execute this one more time so that you can see the price column data also. You can see it here in the console. If you can see here, yes, it is printing row wise data. In the rows, you are having 4 columns. This is column 1, column 2, column 3, as well as column 4. And in this way, you can read all rows and columns data. Very important. Now, the another requirement is, yes, I have read all rows and columns data, but I don't want to print all rows and columns data. So my requirement is, based on my condition, I want to print only the data which I required. Suppose you can take this way. Suppose instead of reading all rows and columns data, what you can do, I want to read a specific data based on condition. Suppose, so I want to list book's name whose author name is Mukesh. If the author is Mukesh, if you can see here, if the author is Mukesh, with the author of Mukesh, I am having 2 books, Learn Java as well as Master in Selenium. These are the 2 books which I am having. So based on author like Mukesh, I want to get the book name. How I can do? I need to get the book name. I need to get the price. How I can try to write a logic for this? Reading a data based on specific condition. Counting number of rows we have discussed. Specific data, row and column data. Reading all rows and columns data. And right now, I need to write or I need to print it in the console that, based on the condition, I want only to fetch the data which I required. How I can try to fetch? So if you see here, I can use the XPath which I have written earlier, and instead of cell data, what I can do, I can specify a static data. So you can remove this column. Right now, I don't want to iterate each and every cell. Based on the author, I need to fetch the data. So what I can do, instead of dynamically specifying the column value, what I can do, I can specify the column static column value here. If you can see here, author name, I can take this as author name based on the condition. So when the author is Mukesh, so what I can do, instead of data, I can specify author name. Author name. Yes, the author name is having in the second column. If you can see here, in the second column only, I am just having author name. So I don't want to read all the columns in this case. So what I can do, I want to iterate to each and every row, and in the every row, I'm having a second column, which is nothing but an author column. In the author column, if author is Mukesh, I want to fetch the book name, I want to fetch the price. How I can do that? What I can do, I can specify the static value of the column here. I can just specify 2 here, because in the second column only I'm just having the author name column. So I will get the author name. Then if author name is equal to Mukesh, that's what my requirement is. If author name is Mukesh, I want to fetch book name, right? Then I want to fetch price of that particular book. How I can fetch the book name? So I can use the same locator which I am using here. So instead of 2, I can specify 1 here, because in the first column only I am having book name, and in the last column I am having the price. So instead of 2, I can specify 4 here. What it will do, if the author name is Mukesh, book name is present in the first column, fetch that book name, and for the same book name in the fourth column it is having the price, just fetch that price. And you can print that, print of book name space, you can specify author name, comma, space, you can specify the price which we have captured if author is Mukesh. Let me execute this. You can see it here in the console. It is just printing all rows and columns data, and thereafter it has printed. If author is Mukesh, Learn Java is one book and Master Selenium is another book, and the price is 500 as well as 3000. That's what you can see here, 500 and 3000. So what I will do, I will just comment this, and instead of Mukesh, I will specify any another author, like you can take Amit. Instead of Mukesh, I can specify Amit here. If you can see what all the books Amit is having, Amit is having 2 books, and for those 2 books they are having the price. You can see it here. Amit has Learn Selenium, Master in JS are the 2 books, and 300 and 1000 is the price value of each and every book. Very important. You can see it here. Amit is the author, Learn Selenium is the book name, and the price is 300. Amit is the author, Master in JS is the another book for the same author, and the price is 1000. That's what it has printed. Learn Selenium, Master in JS, Amit is the author, as well as 300 is the price. In this way, you can interact with a web table, whether it is a static table or a dynamic table. Based on my requirement, I need to write the logic. Logic is very important. This is what the whole concept is. You need to achieve that your requirement based on your logic. Counting number of rows and columns, reading specific row column data, reading all rows and columns data, and reading a data based on a specific condition. That's what we have seen it here. And thereafter, you can specify driver dot close, or you can specify driver dot quit. It is as per your requirement.